In this video I'm going to show how to set up a web server with a Raspberry Pi. In case you're wondering why I'm using the original Raspberry Pi, it's for the simple reason that I have a bunch of SD cards laying around and not a bunch of micro SD cards laying around. The reason why I'm making this video is I was about to make a video showing how to have an Arduino talk to a web server and send data to it or get data from it. And I kind of realized that, you know, with this type of project, you could really just make your own web server and it'd be really cheap, simple, and easy to do. So that's what this video is going to cover. We're not going to actually use the Arduino in this particular video, but we're going to get all the software installed and set up on the Arduino. Go ahead and open up your web browser. We'll start off by going to the Raspberry Pi website and downloading the Raspbian distribution for the Raspberry Pi. Go to Downloads, down to Raspbian, download that. We're going to need a way to copy this image to the SD card. Go to Image Installation Guides. Click on the link for your operating system. If you're using Windows, you're going to need Win32 Disk Imager. Click on Download. Alright, that is started to download. A couple other tools we're going to need. I want to set up the web server to be headless, which means you don't need to keep a monitor and keyboard hooked up to it all the time. And that's simply because with the web server you really don't need to, and it's a waste of space and energy and all that. So one tool you're going to want is Swish, SFTP. And what it does is it will let you connect to your Raspberry Pi over the network, and it will mount the, I guess you'd call it the hard drive, what in reality is your SD card. It will mount it as just another drive in my computer. So it's really easy and convenient. Click on Download. We'll wait for that to start. And then the other tool we're going to need is Tera, T-E-R-A. T-E-R-M. And what this does is it will let you connect to your Raspberry Pi through a command line interface. We're going to use Secure Shell, which is an encrypted communications protocol. And go ahead and click on Download. Scroll down to the latest version. Now it's downloading. So I'm going to go ahead and wait for these to finish downloading, and we'll be back shortly. All 4 files have finished downloading, and I closed the web browser. Let's start by taking the Raspbian image and unzipping that file. Just copy that to the desktop. Alright, so we're done with the zip file. We have the image right there. Let's go ahead and copy it to the SD card. We open up the Win32 Disk Imager installer. Let's try that again. Alright, so we have the tool right there. Alright, good. So we don't need the installer anymore. We can delete that. We need to tell it where the image file is for Raspbian. And we want it to copy to the SD card, which on this computer happens to be the E drive. So we just click write, and it will ask you to confirm. And now it's in progress. It'll tell you how fast it's copying right here. While that's working, let's go ahead and install the rest of the software. We'll install Swish. Alright, so we don't need that installer anymore. And finally we'll install Tera. Alright, we can delete the installer. So let's move Tera up here. And I'm going to go ahead and wait for this SD card to finish copying over. Okay, the SD card is finished. Click OK. We can exit out of this. Don't need these anymore. Okay, now we just need to set up the Raspberry Pi. So all we need to do is we need to take the SD card, put it in the Raspberry Pi. We need to plug in a keyboard and a monitor. I have an old PS2 keyboard. And for the monitor, you would typically plug in, a modern HDMI monitor, but I'm going to use some video capture software so that I can show you the display more easily. So I'm going to actually use the RCA connector. So I have a little video capture device that I'm going to plug into my laptop, and we'll plug it in here. And then finally we need to power up the Raspberry Pi. So you plug in a micro USB cable, and you'll see the power light come on. Alright, so when you plug in the Raspberry Pi, you'll get this screen. It will start booting up. The image quality, as you can see, isn't terribly great. That's a combination of my video capture device and also the RCA output on the Raspberry Pi isn't quite perfect. In any case, it's plenty good enough for what we're doing here. So we're going to let it finish booting up. Alright, and we're dropped into this menu. And the first option is Expand File System. Press Enter. And it has now resized the file system to take up your entire SD card, which is good. We can down arrow to change user password. We'll type in a new password. For this demo, I'm just going to type in password, but you want to pick something a little more secure than that. And it changed it. If we go down to the third option, press enter, the That first option is fine. We just want a text console. Press enter. We'll go down to internationalization options. We can change the locale. I'm gonna pick ENUS, which is English United States. By default, they check the one for Great Britain. I'm gonna press space to uncheck that. And I'm gonna press space to check that. I'll press enter. And for default, I'm gonna select the one I just chose. Press enter. And let's go down here, enable camera. I don't need it, so I'm going to go to disable. Don't really have a desire to put it on Rastrack. Don't really want to overclock it. I guess we could take a look at the advanced options. We'll go to secure shell. We do want to enable that because we're going to use that. Go back to advanced. Yeah, everything else looks not particularly interesting for this application. Press escape to go back. And if you use you can't just keep going down. You have to use the left and right arrow. Go down to finish. Press enter. And we want to reboot. Alright, so we're dropped here with a login screen. Default username is PI, and then the password you entered. And we're at our command line. So we don't actually need to do anything else with it hooked up to a monitor. So I'm going to shut down the Raspberry Pi, plug it into my router, and we'll go from there. To shut down, type in sudo sudo, which is short for super user do. In other words, run this as an admin. Shutdown -h, which is halt, and then now, which is do it right now. Alright, so the Arduino is now shut down, and we can go ahead and unplug it and plug it into the router. So to plug it into your router, all you need is a micro USB cable for power and an Ethernet cable for network connectivity. So on my router, I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. I have an Ethernet cable that I'll plug in. Plug that into the Raspberry Pi. And for power, my router happens to have USB ports, so I will power off of that. Alright, so you can see by the power LED that the Raspberry Pi is powered up. And leave that there for now. And we'll go back to the computer and get everything going from there. So we have the Raspberry Pi hooked up to the router, and it just needs Ethernet and power. We don't need to have a keyboard or mouse plugged into it anymore. And what we're going to do now is we're going to connect to it over the network with your normal computer. So first we need to figure out just what its IP address is, and the IP address is like a telephone number for a device on your network. So if you bring up your web browser, you'll need to type in the IP address for your router. Usually it's 192.168.1.1. Alright, so we're logged in. The interface for your particular router is probably going to be different, so you might need to flip through the manual that came with your router or look up the manual online. On my particular router, which is an ASUS RT AC68U, if you click on Clients and then go to wired, because it's plugged in as opposed to being wireless, we'll see down here we have the Raspberry Pi, and we have the IP address here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it locked to that IP address just to be convenient. Alright, so it has now saved that change. If we go back to Clients and to Wired, see we have it here, and it's 192.168.1.78. So your IP address will be different. You need to figure out what the one is for your Raspberry Pi on your network. If you go to Tera term, you want to type in that IP address here. And we do want to use SSH. Click OK. It will ask for you to confirm the host key. Click Continue. And type in the username and password. Alright, so this is kind of like where we were at when we just shut down the Raspberry Pi earlier. We're at the command line, and this is basically how you're going to do any administration to the Raspberry Pi. You can do it from your normal computer instead of having to walk over to the Raspberry Pi, plug in a monitor and a keyboard and all that mess. So the first thing we need to do is we want to update any software that is already installed. So you type in sudo apt get update. And that will update the or it will check the servers for the list of updates. And now we want to actually install any updates. Sudo apt-get upgrade. And there's only a few that are a few updates that are available. They're listed here. And we are asked to confirm, so we'll press yes. And now it will download and install those updates. Alright, so we've finished updating the software that is currently installed. So it's finished installing the updates. We can now install the other software we want. We're going to install the Apache web server. We're going to install the MySQL SQL database server, and we're going to install PHP. So type in sudo apt-get install Apache 2 is the name for the package for the current version of Apache. MySQL-server, MySQL-client, PHP 5, and PHP 5-MySQL. Press enter, and it will list a whole bunch of packages that will be installed, and there's some dependencies, so there's going to be quite a few other packages, and that's fine. So press yes to confirm, and now it will install everything. When you install the MySQL server, you have to create, well, it'll create the root user for you, but you have to give it a password. And keep in mind that this is a totally different user and password from the normal Linux user and password. So this is what you'll use, well, not usually the root user, but you'd use these usernames and passwords when you're going to communicate with the MySQL server through a website. So give it a password. And repeat the password. Alright, so we've finished installing all of that software. We can now go ahead and verify that it actually works. So if you type in the IP address for your Raspberry Pi, and you get this, which is the default web page. So our Raspberry Pi is online, and it is responding to a request. What we can do now is we can actually try copying files to the web server. In order to do that, you'll need to change permissions on the directory that contains your website. So if you type in sudo chmod 777-r/var/www. What this does is, again, super user do, so do this as an admin. We're going to change, I believe that's modifications, but basically change permissions of a file or directory. And the permissions are specified as a number, and the number 7 will grant read, write, and execute permissions. And we have that for the owner, the group, and everyone else. -r is recursive, which means it will apply to all subdirectories, and then /var/www is where your website is actually located. So you press enter, and that's kind of all we need to do in this Tera term for now. If you bring up your file browser, go to this PC, double click on Swish, and go up to Add SFTP Connection. Give it a label. I'm going to call it Raspberry Pi. Type in the IP address of your Raspberry Pi and the username that you want to log in under. And for path, we'll just put it at the root. So we now have that listed here. If we double click on it, it will ask you to confirm the host key. And you have to type in your password. And now this is basically the Raspberry Pi hard drive, or SD card in reality. So if we go to var and www, that was the web page we just saw. That would be this. Let's go ahead and bookmark this folder. So now we just have to click here if you ever want to get to it. Okay, so we're on the web server, and instead of using that default file, we can delete it if we want to. And we can just copy any files we want onto the web server. So just for testing, let's copy over some of these. And if we go to our web browser, you can now see those files are ready to be served up. So at this point, we have a connection to our web browser, a connection to our web server, and we have files we can serve up. You can put HTML files here, PHP, pretty much anything you want. And we connect to the directory structure with Swish, and we're using Tera to connect to the command line. And in my next video, I'm going to show how to have an Arduino talk to the web server. So I'll cover the very basics of PHP, MySQL, how to create a really simple database, and then how to read from it. And this video, which is kind of first steps, kind of just getting it set up. And so check out the next video, and we'll get some interesting things done there. I hope you liked this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and good luck with your projects.